What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Clear Talk. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about the Trump address the other night. I'm sorry I'm a little late doing this. I didn't do a video yesterday. Had some stuff I had to handle or do, um, and so I didn't get around to it. But if you were here for the address, I did go live on TikTok and YouTube, reacting to it live. I did have a couple of technical issues. My computer froze up. I've got some kind of issue with a driver or something that's messing me up whenever I try to take things full screen on one screen or another. It for some reason freezing up the video. But I still was able to get that handled and situated out for us to go through the video. It was a really good live. If you attended that, then thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed it. But I mean, the dress, as I said there, the address was literally come off like a campaign speech, like a rally speech, which was very odd. Um, to get, for one, prime time television to take the time to allow you to do something like that. And that's something that we're going to talk about. But so I'm gonna give kind of my overall thoughts on the address, but and also check out other people's initial thoughts and stuff, and like fact checking and everything right after the fact, because that was really enlightening too. So thank you very much for joining me here, and if you are new to Clear Talk, welcome. If you want to check out more videos from the channel, please do so. Consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that good stuff to get more videos in front of more people. If you like to check out videos from my other channels, JMDPLAY, puzzling there. If you like what you see there, consider just subscribing to those as well. That would be amazing. If you want to give any kind of support, there's $3 a month there at Patreon. You can support any of the channels you would like, to help grow those channels, help grow Patreon, to help grow the JMD Nation at large. And any way you want to contribute or support is very much appreciated, and I thank you very, very much. And if you are returning, you are freaking amazing. Welcome back. Keep coming back, because we love you here. Okay, so yeah, let's get to it. Immediately after, like I said, this live was great. Had a lot of fun. I actually got cut off from TikTok. TikTok completely cut me off at one point. It was like almost at the end. Community guidelines. I guess I either used some language that they didn't like, or maybe some people reported my stream. I don't know what happened, but it did get cut off. But we came right back and finished out the address anyways, which was kind of interesting, that I was allowed to do that. Seems like it's not that big of a deal, but anyway. But yeah, it was interesting, a fun time to do that live and get some interaction with people in the middle of it. That was really awesome. Glad that we did that. But right after I cut off, I should have just held on to the stream a little bit longer and checked out some initial feedback from people, and I kind of regret not doing that, honestly. But immediately after, we had MS Now, debriefing with Jen Psaki. Now, don't hit me right off the bat here, okay? I'm not a huge Jen Psaki fan, but because it was kind of ironic in a way that she is doing this address the nation response, kind of fact checking and stuff, although she wasn't the one really technically doing the fact checking. As after a lot of lies that she spewed during the Biden presidency, the first part where she was the press secretary or whatever. But I mean, maybe that's the reason, partly why she left. Maybe she got tired of lying or felt like she was too pressured to lie. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe she's better than than that era, because that's where I learned her. I didn't really know her before that. So hey, I'll kind of give her a little bit of a break there, maybe, but she did an initial briefing after, had a couple people on, some fact checkers and stuff that like it's particularly on the economy. One of them, and then another a lady that was doing that, and then another guy that was kind of talking more broadly about the economy and stuff, and how the address was delivered and stuff like that. So I wanted to go over that. Let's go check that out real quick, and then I'm just going to talk in general, my feelings about the whole thing, and speculation on what may have not happened that was supposed to. So yeah, let's get swapped over, and we'll check this out real quick.
Well, the president has just finished his address to the nation, and was that a speech? I mean, it felt almost like it was a bad, fast-talking infomercial with a lot of anti-immigrant language just intertwined in there. It was extremely loose on facts, and he basically tried to shout his alleged accomplishments at the American people as if that was going to convince them that they were all true.
And that's what I basically said through the entire live. That, I mean, and that's something that, well, for starters, let me go quickly. A lot of people have said afterwards. I don't know that I necessarily realized it in the moment, but maybe that's because I was stopping constantly and like talking in between things that he was saying. But I've heard so many people talk about how the speed in which he was talking, which, like I said, in the time I wasn't recognizing that he was speaking so fast, but everybody has been saying that he was speaking like unnaturally fast, like he was trying to throw a lot of stuff in as fast as he could, which is outside of the pace that he typically talks. I did feel very much bullet pointed, like he was on script, stayed on script. I did realize that, although I don't know that I don't think I really even mentioned that during the speech. He didn't really go off or weave or anything like that. I mean, there was a couple moments I feel like he wanted to, but then he pulled back. It felt like it most certainly was more than likely that he only had like 15 to 20 minutes or something. Like that's what the stations agreed to, and so they were trying to spitfire as much in as they possibly could. But like I said, but I was saying this exact same thing. It felt like he was trying to forcibly like throw his opinion at the economy on everybody, like as if like he felt like the only people that were listening or the only people that knew that it was a good economy was like all of his um fan base that like constantly just pays attention to everything he says and believes everything he says. And it's like his administration has been trying so hard to make, and him has been trying so hard to make everybody feel like the economy is just amazing and that, everything's going wonderful and your prices are all low when we're all looking at them and going, where? I don't see it. And we're not feeling it. And that's the reason why his polls are dropping constantly, like across the board. And I think they were just desperate to try to get some sort of message out before the end of the year, and be like, look, this is what we accomplished this first year, and blah 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 blah. But it's just that the problem with that is that for those people who are not listening to you or those people who do not believe you, they're not going to suddenly believe you because you got on air and said it in a national address. Like, and I don't know if like I think Trump literally thinks that when he speaks something, people should expect it to be the truth. And maybe that's because he genuinely thinks it's the truth. That's hard pressed for me to believe, like wholeheartedly. I mean, some stuff I think he thinks is like the honest truth, and if it truly is, then whoever the hell's telling him this stuff is like, I mean, really making him look like a moron. Because like I said, everything over and over again, these so-called facts, these so-called statistics that Susan Wiles, said he was such a statistical like genius or something, holding on to all these types of statistics and numbers and facts and blah blah blah, quote unquote. Like they're just the wrong stuff though. It doesn't matter how good you might be at, or talented you might be at something like that. If it's all wrong, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter. It's pointless to have that talent if you're holding on to incorrect data. But yeah, it's that's the way I felt, that it was just a full on like just a campaign speech that was thrown out, trying to forcibly and urgently get people to believe that the economy was good before going into a new year, that especially around everything else that's bothering people, when the Congress is not wanting to pass ACA subsidies, and everybody knows that their insurance is going to be going up, along with the already feeling that stuff is not down like they're being told. So I think, and going to a midterm elections for next year, I think that this was just a desperation to try to get people to latch on as much as possible to make his numbers come up and him look better. Because if there's one thing that Trump is the most worried about, is his image, but or at least his opinion of his image. Anyways, all right, so let's continue. I'm sorry, I just wanted to get that out of the way.
I'm going to get some reaction and experts help analyzing what he said in just a moment. But first, I just want to quickly fact check just a few. I mean, there were so many in there. We were working as quickly as we could, but just a few of the president's most blatant falsehoods. Tonight, Trump announced checks for $1,776 for U.S. troops. First of all, Congress controls the power of the purse in the country, not the president. So if that happens, that is Congress sending those checks, even if Trump puts his name on them. But that number, $1,776, is also kind of interesting.
I thought that same thing.
From the Yale Budget
said that same thing in the live.
As of November, Trump tariffs have cost Americans an average of $1,700 per household this year.
And that was something that I questioned in the middle of the live. Like, that seems like a very specific and kind of odd number. Where did that number come from? And immediately after, they were saying that that's like the statistical data, economical data for how much the tariffs have affected American households is $1,700. So that kind of like, okay, yeah, that's possibly where that number come from. I'm not, definitive, but like that's very possible.
Trump also claimed that when he took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years. That's not true. The truth is that inflation had been declining from its peak of 7% during the pandemic. But since Trump took office, it has basically flatlined at 3%. It was 3% in January, and it's 3% today. In his campaign, Trump also claimed
it did go down to like 2.8 or something for a couple months there, but then it's right back up. So yeah, it's fluctuated a little bit, but it's basically stayed flatlined. So yeah, that's just the economy. Trump, and matter of fact, if he hadn't done the tariffs, it probably would be lower at this point. His tariffs have actually ruined inflation.
He would end inflation on day one. Now, just last week, the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, said that, quote, inflation remains somewhat elevated. There you go. Trump said he's working to bring grocery prices down. Now, just this week, this is where it gets awkward for him, Trump's own agriculture department released a report showing that food prices are rising faster than inflation. And everybody, by the way, is living that at grocery stores. Trump also claimed that he's brought gas prices down to $1.99 a gallon. The national average for a gallon of gasoline was $3.11 when Trump took office. The national average today per AAA is $2.91. That is just a little taste and flavor, and I'm sure you all have your own lists.
Yeah, I mean, here in, like I said in the live there too, here in Mississippi, right now, it's just, I mean, it's been for maybe a month or so, it's been slightly under 250. It kind of fluctuates. The other day, I got it for yesterday, I got it for 247. And that's relatively the lowest I think I've been able to get it at all, like within the past few months, a few times. At around 247, 248, 249. Sometimes it's 254-ish. Like, it just fluctuates depending upon the week. And and that's Mississippi, and we have some of the lowest, if not the lowest, gas prices in the country. So, the 199, I talked about that in this stream. That there is, there is a gas station like in Texas, that I saw reported at one point, a month or so ago, where they were in this. I think it was just a temporary thing or something to do with helping out farmers or agriculture or something there, the area, like on one day of the week, like a Thursday or something, for like a couple of hours during the afternoon. They were dropping the price to like 199 or 198 or something like that, just to help out with people in the area or something. I can't remember exactly, but that was, that was going on for maybe a week or so, or a couple of weeks or something. It was, but that's like the only instance of actual gas price being 199, and I don't know whether or not that was something that he heard about and latched onto, or what others speculate was that the actual raw gas price before, like, additives are added, ethanol and stuff like that, actual raw gas price was selling like one at 199 or 198 or something like that, for a little bit there in a couple of areas, a couple of regions. But then by the time you add the additives and all that kind of stuff, it's back up to, whatever we are paying at the pump. It's, it's just not the price that we pay at the pump. So that possibly could be what somebody told him, just so that he would believe it, maybe, or that he just heard it and thought, hey, that might be a good thing for us to just say. It's 199 in a couple of states or something. Like, I don't know. I that's the best I can do to, like, strong man someone who just loves to spit out lies. And there's, when we look at the pump and we know that's not what's the price. And so that, I don't know. That's the only thing I can say. But yeah, and we, like I said, I talked about that during the live. So if you were there, you heard that.
Home. Again, just a short list, but I'm sure I missed plenty of things. So joining me now are two people who have been paying very close attention. MS Now senior White House correspondent Von Hilliard, along with co-host of The Weekend, Catherine Rimpel, who is also the economics editor at The Bulwark. Okay, Catherine, let me just start with you, because there were so many economic falsehoods in there. It was like Micro Machine, if people know that reference. Man meets Pinocchio, just talking about the economy and shouting at the American public. What did you note in there that stuck out to you as the most glaring things?
Oh, man, that was like a manic Gish Gallop, if anybody ever did high school debate. There were a lot of lies per second there. I took some notes. So among the first things out of his mouth was a lie. He said that he inherited the worst inflation in 48 years. Absolutely not true. Inflation when he took office was about 3%. Today it is about 3%. Definitely not the highest in 48 years, and also no different today than it was
tried
at
to
the
be
beginning.
cute there, but didn't really fall.
And then it bounced back
whatever.
up after Liberation Day. He talked about bringing prices down. That obviously has not happened. He had a bunch of statistics in there. I have no idea what the provenance of them it was. He said things like turkey prices have come down by a third. He said that they're building
we talked about that too.
That's records he hasn't seen, neglecting to mention that we have had 7 consecutive months of manufacturing job losses. It is true that there is big investment in AI data centers, not so much in jobs. In fact, we are losing jobs.
Yes,
he talked
we
about
are very
having
much
the largest
losing
tax
jobs.
cuts in American history, demonstrably false, not to mention the fact that his tariffs are technically the largest tax increase as a percent of GDP in over 30 years. And don't take my word for it. That's the Conservative Tax Foundation that came up with that. Made up a whole bunch of other things about costs coming down. I don't know where these numbers came from. He talked about how he's going to appoint someone to the Federal Reserve who's going to bring down interest rates and bring down mortgage costs. I have no doubt that that is what he hopes will happen. However, the chair of the Federal Reserve cannot, in fact, unilaterally bring down interest rates, and certainly cannot bring down mortgage costs, particularly if we're not building more homes in this country, which we probably won't be because he's deporting the entire construction labor force. There was a whole bunch of other stuff in there. You know, you mentioned a lot of the anti-immigrant rhetoric about, he talked about how immigrants are taking our jobs, driving up rents. I don't know where he's getting some of these numbers from. Again, like I'd have to do like a big ChatGPT or Google search or something to figure out where these numbers are coming from. He said some other things about like the cost.
And I don't think she means that as like trying to find factual numbers. I think she means that in a way of trying to find the numbers that he was spitting out, which we know were not factual. But yeah, that was something that I constantly throughout the whole thing, because he had these. If you were watching, he had these images of these graphs and stuff trying to depict between him and Biden, and that was like his obsession. He said Biden over I don't know how many times. It was just constantly Biden. He was trying to blame everything that we are perceiving as bad from the economy on Biden. Which polls are showing that is not flying with American people. Even his own supporters are not, at this point, accepting that narrative. It's just everybody at this point is like, yeah, we believed that and thought that maybe back in the summer, but like you've been in there almost a year now, and you keep saying these things. But like it's we're not seeing it, and you can no longer really blame Biden anymore. And that's where his messaging, I think, is falling maybe even the most flat, is the constant pushing back or laying the blame on anybody else but him and his administration. So that was something that was very notable during the entire speech. Every one of the graphs was this just obscure depiction between him and Biden, with no nuance whatsoever, and they didn't really show or reflect anything that really made sense, or showed distinction between what he was talking about when it come to Biden, whether it was like an overall average or whether it like is a peak thing, which is what I brought up, and what his numbers were, which were, again, a nuance of whether or not that's like the lowest point, or which we would typically try to do to make it look as big of a span or spread as he was trying to make it look like. Trying to find like the peak numbers of Biden and the lowest numbers of him. That's what it felt like and looked like to me. I don't know, but yeah, it was very, certainly was not factual. Lacked specificity in that, which you can choke that up to any president probably doing that to some degree. Okay, but still, like, that kind of stuff at this point falls deaf on most of America, no matter who it is we're talking about. So it's just we're and I think America is at this point where we were seriously sick and tired of feeling like we are being lied to. Sick of the lack of transparency, feeling like we, like you're attempting to bamboozle us or something. We're no longer accepting being hoodwinked. In other words, I'm just throwing out just all kinds of words, aren't I? Okay, let's go on.
The cost of law enforcement has gone up so high that it's not even to be mentioned, which is why he didn't mention a number. But in fact, if you look at the economic cost of his immigration policies, a new report from the National
Foundation doesn't actually have a number.
American Policy found that the Trump administration's policies on illegal and legal immigration would reduce the projected number of workers in the U.S. by 6.8 million people by 2028, and lower the annual rate of economic growth by almost a third.
There's so much more to dig into here, and we just wanted to give you all a sense. I mean, Vaughn, the backdrop here, I mean, Stephen Miller seems like he has little paws all over that speech, because there were just moments where it almost felt like a knee-jerk, anti-immigrant, xenophobic kind of phrase, false information, inaccurate details he's sharing about the impact of immigrants on the country. This is all the backdrop of all of this, and I started the show talking about this, is also, as you well know, a lot of things happening in this White House. I mean, the Susie Wiles mind-blowing piece came out just yesterday. The Epstein files are due in 2 days. House Republicans
today,
of
as a matter of fact,
rejected
now
the Trump agenda, or the Trump desires, I should say, on Capitol Hill today. They're trying to wage what seems to be an illegal war in Venezuela. What led to that micro machine fast talking infomercial that we just heard?
To a certain extent, things are out of President Trump's control. When you're on the campaign trail, right, or if you're in the courtroom with your lawyers, right, you can walk out, you can go yell into a microphone, and you can go and try to convince the masses that you are being politically targeted for prosecution, right? You can go and bat Joe Biden over the head at Sleepy Joe all you want. And that's what he's done the last couple of years. But now he's the president of the United States, and he's got a 4-year term. It was his own Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, that back in July was very specific. He said Biden's first quarter is behind us, and growth is already accelerating. Congratulations, America. We're just getting started. That was this summer. The Trump administration now, with President Trump's own speech tonight, are suddenly bringing Joe Biden and blaming him again for the economic situation that Americans find themselves in. And when I say it's out of his control, right, I was talking a week ago at an event that he did in Pennsylvania, where I was talking to his own supporters about what grade they would give the economy. There were Ds, C minuses, B minuses. That's the state of America. And the president used, with a lack of hubris here today, an attempt to try to convince Americans that their lives and the situation of this country is better than so many people are actually expressing.
And that's the thing, is like, even, and I've heard this, I mean, yes, he said it there, but I've heard several others that do the same thing, you know, that go to the rallies, that talk to the Trump supporters. These are ardent, like, hardcore supporters, and they are over and over again talking about how, yeah, the economy doesn't really, you know, I am not quite seeing it, but and even though they admit that they don't see it, they still feel that, like, they believe Trump when he says that it's going to get better, like, that it is getting better and it's going to get even better. Like, they just cough that up as, like, they're just not quite seeing it yet, but they will feel it later, like, especially after the years. Reason why they've kind of changed the narrative and the tone is, like, you will and hear lately, like, it is better even though you don't see it, but you're certainly going to feel it, you know, in the new year. Like, just trust us, you're going to see it in the new year. When all data is showing that that's not going to be the case. And that's where, if you can't even completely persuade your own supporters, like hardcore supporters, that the economy is better right now, currently, you're certainly not going to convince people who are not exactly supporters of you. So that's where it's just this whole thing kind of just fell flat.
There's always kind of a swirl. I mean, some people are working on speeches like these, but not everybody in the building, right? So what was going on with everybody else in the building today? Were they dealing with all the other stuff, or what were they most freaking out about?
You know what struck me is, you mentioned Stephen Miller, but the speech actually kind of sounded like plaques that were just installed at the White House today.
Yeah, I saw that. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, we're going to have a conversation about, I'm going to do another separate video about the ongoing changes that Trump is making at the White House. I mean, I've talked about this before, when the ballroom thing come up, when they started demolishing the East Wing, and like, but this is when he first started on the Walk of Fame of the presidents, and the one that he put in for Biden being the auto pen picture instead of Biden's actual, like, picture. Now he has placed plaques, quote unquote, describing and talking about the history of the presidents, those particular presidents specifically, and it is just it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. They are written like, or at least certain ones are written like a Trump Truth Social post. It is mind-boggling. That this is official plaques that have been placed on the walls of the White House, in honor, quote unquote, of the presidents. That's wild. Anyway, yeah.
There were plaques. The president made this presidential walk of fame outside of the West Wing where there's a portrait of every prior president. And those have been up now for a couple weeks. But today they added plaques, and I walked by and was reading them and calling Joe Biden Sleepy Joe, saying Barack Obama was one of the most divisive political figures in history. Those are the official plaques. And reading through it, it sounds like a Trump Truth Social post. His speech tonight sounded like a Trump Truth Social post. And I think this is where Susie Wiles' profile reveals that, well, she facilitates, right, sort of this structure of a White House that effectively allows Donald Trump to be himself. That speech tonight, 10 months in, was Donald Trump being himself, and he delivered the speech where he wanted to tell everybody, America's the hottest country in the world, right? He literally said the line, we have achieved anything more than anyone could have ever imagined. And when he talks about the state of this country, we need to be clear. European allies, Canada, Mexico are questioning just how hot America is right now and whether we are committed to the global order that has held up the global construct ever since World War II. And so while President Trump there is trying to convince Americans that all is fine and dandy, America's closest allies are questioning that. Donald Trump just had prime time. He interrupted the season finale of Survivor. Okay, we're talking about more than 5 million people that are watching that on CBS tonight. The president just interrupted that and was able to deliver essentially a campaign speech. That is not what addresses like this. You know this from the White House. It is usually for a major domestic or international incident or announcement. That was not this.
It is usually for a major international event, and White Houses have to make pitches. I remember quite well when the networks rejected Barack Obama's request and our request from the White House to air a speech on immigration that actually had policy in it. But usually you have to meet a certain bar in order to get that time. And I assume there's going to be a lot of meetings in these networks tomorrow morning about whether or not to do that again. If they ask again, we will see. Catherine, let me ask you just.
Yeah, that's what I've also heard a lot of people state, and this reason why a lot of people felt like this speech was meant to have something else in it, because again, for you to interrupt prime time television, these networks that expect, because of their viewership and whatnot, they're making profits from this, from viewership or whatever, to interrupt that. And like he stated, you're interrupting the season finale of Survivor. Now, I mean, I haven't, I'm not a Survivor watcher. It's been years since I watched Survivor, but I'm sure it's still big. He said 5 million. I don't know, but like, you're interrupting all these channels, and these channels, agreed to it, which was interesting. Like she said, if they to allow to be interrupted over something merely as a campaign speech doesn't seem to muster, really. It doesn't make any sense. It feels like they were sold on something else, maybe, possibly, that there was some major announcement. Now, one could argue, well, he did announce the checks, and but the checks announcement is not something dire enough to take prime time for, addressing the nation like that. That's not enough. That doesn't meet the bar that I'm pretty sure that these networks would have you try to meet, like she was saying, to interrupt. Now, maybe that's the reason why he was only probably given 15, 20 minutes or so. I mean, I think the speech wound up being around 18 minutes. But like, it just doesn't make any sense. And that's the reason why there's so many people, and there was all kinds of reports before it come out that he was going to announce something on Venezuela, like a potential going to war on Venezuela, which they have been. It's just steadily looking like that's where we're moving towards, pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think there was a possibility that that may have been what he was initially going to get on and announce, but something held him back. Maybe to try to sell to the American people that it was about the drugs. Although it's looking, I did a report yesterday, I think no, the day before yesterday, that it looks more like it's seriously about oil and not about drugs. I mean, clearly it can't be about drugs when there's like hardly any drugs coming from Venezuela, especially not, to the United States. And that's like well known that, less than like 10% of all drugs come from Venezuela. The majority of it comes from Colombia, Mexico, and of course China. This is well known. And so the constant argument over this is, blowing up boats in the waters is about drugs is like just ridiculous at this point. And ridiculous on the whole idea of making land on Venezuela as a possibility to go to war. And again, that would have to be declared to Congress for that to happen, which even Susan Wiles' Vanity Fair, she even made that, a point in there that, yes, if he were to actually make land, we would most certainly need the Congress to approve that. But they legitimately feel that the actions they have taken so far are warranted and are legal. And that's just like, that's wild. So, and then for some reason though, and we have now reports where Trump apparently went to the oil companies kind of like trying to sell on this idea of, hey, we take over Venezuela, we get Maduro out, would you be ready? Because he's been talking here lately about, oh, well, they stole our oil and then they stole, land and stuff that we were drilling and whatnot on, so we're going to take that back. We want that back. That's like been his, so he's already in his rhetoric kind of walking away from the drug thing, like as of recent. And so it's starting to be revealed that, oh yeah, this is definitely about the oil. But he apparently went to oil companies asking, hey, when we do this, if we do this, will you be ready and willing to get back in Venezuela and go, get back to producing oil from Venezuela like you were previously back in like the 50s, 60s, whatever. And apparently reports are that the oil company said no. That they, that it would be too costly for them to do that. Now, Chevron apparently still is like the only company that has like a deal with the Venezuelan government where they actually still produce oil out of Venezuela, but nobody else does. And according to reports, they aren't even like interested in it because it would be too costly. I don't know that and maybe he got that report before this address and or got this feedback before the address and then they decided to like pull the plug. I don't know. It's all kind of interesting to say the least. So yeah, that's again, and it just turned it into a campaign speech trying to convince the American people that the economy is good when it's clearly not. This certainly fell flat, and along with his comments about Rob Reiner on social media. And again, as this more stuff comes out about the oil, with Venezuela and it not being about drugs, then you have to start, and people have to then be like, okay, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like you were saying it was this, and we were accepting that, and we were okay with you blowing these boats up because of that. But now you're telling me it wasn't that. Then you're gonna have to start. People are going to have to start grasping with that. That you were defending him making all these attacks on these boats, even though reports were coming out that these were not drug boats, that these were fish boats. And that's not to say that maybe one or two of them could have potentially had something on them that was, suspectful or whatever. But still, again, like I've been arguing all along, they should have been seized. You should have seized the boats. If there was something on them, seize that, seize the people on the boats, go through an actual process that should have been gone through. Law and order, official type process, so that you could hands down show proof of what's going on. And instead, you just decided to attack and drop stuff. I mean, drop missiles on boats and blow them up and kill people. Over like 87 people have been killed, and we are now like. I mean, I'm not now. Like I've thought all along, but like other people have to be like, wait a minute, could they have been innocent? And that starts to plague a society when they start to grasp, especially those who thought that an action was warranted, is an action that was, easily can be viewed as violent, but warranted because they think that it's about something that they particularly don't like. And they make excuses for it. But then to be placed in a spot where you have to start to question it, then you have to start grappling with not just that, but other things. Like it just takes one thing. It takes one thing for somebody to suddenly realize might not be a good thing. It takes one thing. It's all it really takes. One thing to make a supporter question, and then rationally, hopefully, they then start to break back and be like, well, if he was wrong about this, could he have been wrong about this? Could he have been wrong about that? And they're going to have to start to play in that area of ifs and coulda, wouldas, and did I, and should I have. I mean, they're going to have to start breaking that down. Now, you probably could say that some are not going to do that. They're just going to be like, this was a mistake, but he's right about everything else. And you're right. You're just very possibly right that they would do that. But if you're one of those that are questioning on this, or questioning on the True Social post about Rob Reiner or whatever, like anything that makes you go, this doesn't seem right. I urge you, please go back and look at everything else. And when you really start to dig into it, you'll start to realize more and more that stuff doesn't seem right. Numbers don't add up. All these statistics that he spews all the time seem a bit inaccurate. And the lies will start to pile up. I know it's like beating a dead horse to sit here and say that you could try to change people's minds. And a lot of people have given up. And there have been moments where I've wanted to give up and probably have given up. But every now and then I'm like, come on now. Come on. At this point, how much more can you take? How much more can you defend? How much more are you going to move the red line? Move the goalpost in the name of defending something, an idea or an image or a belief that you are trying so desperately to hold on to for whatever reason, whether it's loyalty, pride, like genuinely believing in something that you, or thinking you're believing in something. I don't know. Like, it's okay to realize that you were wrong. Okay. The next step is to accept it and, like, move in a better direction. I have no problem and have not had a problem with correcting myself in the past. Everybody should do it. It's just this was a wild speech that really doesn't make sense whatsoever. And like they all said, full of lies and inaccuracies. But yeah, let me know what you think. And until next time, peace. ClearTalk, I'm out.